Have you ever stopped to think about how much you exist online? Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today with our talk titled, Wherever I Go, There I Am, the Data of the Self. It's all about unraveling the bits and bytes of our digital self and seeing how they reflect who we are in the real world. For this session, please join me in welcoming our esteemed keynote speaker, Dr. Desiree Del-Zio, Doctor of Education at D.E.C Consulting. Let's welcome her to the stage.
Is the mic working? No. It's working, yes. Okay, so before I get started, I just want to say that this is my first ever keynote speech. So thank you. So please work with me. Give me some grace. I am trying to be as transparent as I can. As they said, I am Dr. Desiree Del-Zio, and we are going to talk about this topic of wherever I go, there I am, the data of the self. A little less technical than the pixely concept of data, but more about looking at our story and who we are. And I'm going to talk a little bit about who I am, but before we do that, we're going to do a little activity. So, my clicker's not working. Okay, all right, so bear with me. I'd like you to find a partner, someone in the room, whether you know them or not. Take a few minutes to get next to somebody. I know. I know. Some of you are like, I'm already next to somebody, and some of you are like, please don't make me move and get up and do something. Okay, and I'm actually going to bring someone up on the stage to help me role model what we're about to do. So, would you mind? Anybody? Would somebody mind? Or anybody else who's not in the middle of prepping for the airport, which is what I imagine you're doing, because I'm about to do that. Yes, thank you. Very good. Come up. Let's be partners in this first time thing. So I'm going to have my friend here. What is your name? Emily? Yeah. That's my daughter's name. Excellent. Oh, I feel so much better. This is a good room. Yeah. Okay, so Emily, I'm going to have you ask me this question. Who are you? A series of times. That's it. That's all you have to do. Go ahead. I am a mother. I am a daughter. I am a business owner. I am a transformational leader. I am a survivor of trauma. I am an author. I am a daughter of a mother of Alzheimer's. I am the medical caregiver of my parents. That's good. Thank you, Emily. Make sense? So I'd like you to do that. I'm going to time you for 30 seconds, so it doesn't have to be that long. Pick whoever is going to start being Emily, and whoever will start being me, and then we are going to take turns. So go ahead and get started. You have 30 seconds. Go for it. Okay, let's switch roles. Okay, let's stop and come back. How was that? Exhilarating. I love that word. How many of you were sitting with someone you know? from this morning's breakfast line. Okay, so for the most part, you were sitting with a stranger, except for over here. What did you learn? What was that experience like? So many roles we play in life that he doesn't know. What did you say? It's hard. I was going to give you a minute. I cut it down to 30 seconds. It's hard to keep going, but what's interesting about all the roles that we play, what are some other things that came up for you? Other words, topics, ideas? Say again? Doubt. Too much. Between you and your partner. Nice. We are more than our name. This is an interesting activity because in the beginning it's easy. And if by the way, you said, who are you? I never said Desiree, which would be, you think would be the first thing, right? But as we go on, it gets harder and harder to figure out what am I going to share with you about who I am, right? And as you notice with Emily, in the beginning, I was saying I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, I'm a business owner, I'm sort of these outward things. But as it went further in, then I'm a trauma survivor. I heard over here, I'm the survivor of a narcissistic relationship. I'm the father of 6. I think if I heard correctly, we have all these different things. Did I hear that right? Of 4. You're like, please don't give me any more kids. I'm already saving for college. So it's kind of an interesting activity to do because it really pushes us to self-reflect on who we are. And that is the data of the self. That's what we're going to talk about. So who am I? I am the founder and CEO of D.E C Consulting. I have a doctoral degree in organizational change and leadership. I have a master's degree in leadership and nonprofit management. I'm certified in diversity and inclusion. I'm certified in nonprofit management. I am an author. I'm a curriculum writer. I'm not sure why the clicker is not working for me. Okay, here we go. Maybe I'm going the wrong way. I'm also the facilitator of organizational change and planning. I promote leadership development and diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging structures and systems in large organizations and nonprofits across the country. I'm a consultant. I'm a coach. I'm a servant and transformational leader. But it wasn't always like this. I am the daughter of an Italian-American, first-generation American, a son of an immigrant from Italy. He grew up in this house in Queens, Jackson Heights. It's in a little apartment. It was a railroad apartment. He slept 2 bedrooms, slept in the same room with his sister until he was too old to do that, and spent the rest of his young life sleeping on a couch. And like all young people in Jackson Heights in Queens and in New York City, his dream was to get out of the city, to raise a family on Long Island. And that is what he did. This is the house I grew up in. My father brought us all out to Long Island. This is a sprawling 6-bedroom house on 3 acres off the Long Island Sound. I grew up with my siblings smelling meatballs cooking on Sunday morning and spent most of my time with my best friend, Jennifer. Jennifer came to my house. We rode our bikes up our cul-de-sac. We played together. We played with our Barbies on my pink shag carpet in my bedroom. We walked to the drugstore that was just 400 yards from her house so that we could buy candy and count how many licks it took to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop. Yes. And as we grew older, we shared stories, we shared dreams, we shared ideas. We talked about boys and being cheerleaders and what we wanted to do when we grew up. And she was the best friend that I ever had. I met her when I was 6 years old. And then one day all that changed. It was a Sunday in December in 1984. And I called Jennifer and I asked her mom if I could talk to her. And she said that she didn't come home. She had gone to the drugstore that we went to many times and was still clad in her Sunday best from church and hadn't come back yet. But she promised that she'd let me know. I called a few hours later. Now there's panic in her mother's voice. No one has seen her. We still don't know where she is. I went to bed that night. I didn't know where she was. The next morning, the phone rang, and the principal of the school called and told us that the day before, Jennifer had been kidnapped. Walking on that 400-yard strip of road we had skipped along so many times was taken, and all of a sudden, my world that was full of all of this joyfulness and bike rides and Tootsie Pops and dreams and ideas was replaced with words I'd never heard before, like murder and assault and shallow grave and post-mortem ligature marks. And suddenly, everything that I was replaced by something I didn't recognize. My conscious mind went into autopilot, and my unconscious mind, armed with my trauma, my unhealed grief, and my suffering, took over and remained the driver of my life for the next 20 years. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't, in bed for 20 years crying. I looked like everybody else. I went to high school, I graduated with honors, I went away to college, I graduated with honors again, I got married, I had children, I bought and sold houses, I bought and sold cars, I moved around, I did all kinds of things, and outwardly I would look like everybody else. But my behaviors were being driven by my unconscious mind, my broken self. I couldn't name any of those things. I couldn't call out my story for what it was. So instead, people would witness me, particularly at work and in my family, as defensive, unable to accept feedback, angry, sad sometimes, not necessarily a very approachable person. None of that, however, could I identify with at that particular time with my experience with Jennifer. Because again, my conscious mind was completely on autopilot. So one day, and understand some of the aspects of my life were very much associated with this. I married a man who experienced even more trauma than I did. And so trauma finds trauma, broken finds broken. So we found each other. And we lived sort of a broken life. We were definitely playing the work avoidance game together. And we acted out all over each other. And then it became too much to bear. And I was 33 years old, so 20 years later, I walked into a therapist's office. I remember that it was dark and serene. And I said, when I was 12 years old, my best friend was murdered, and I think it may have affected me. And thus began a whole new chapter of my life, when I started to look at all of those experiences as the data of myself. So I share this with you because so this is who else I am, right? I told you all these wonderful things that I am. Now you know a little bit more about me. I'm the daughter of a first-generation Italian American. I'm a child of affluence and privilege. I am a victim of childhood trauma. I'm a single mother of a daughter and a transgender son. I'm a survivor of homelessness because the loss of my house, my divorce, the end of my life as I knew it led to me living in a room with my 2 children. I was lost in transition. It was wonderful for me to say that I wanted to change, to say I think this affected me, but it was something else entirely to do something about it. So I lost my home, I lost my marriage, I had $250 in the bank, I had no job. My parents had me move in with them. I was 37 years old. I had hit rock bottom. Wasn't the only time I've hit rock bottom, by the way. So I am and remain a work in progress. But I travel a path of transparency and honesty, part of why I'm telling you this story. Because I see that experience of mine as sort of universal. Not that everybody has that experience, but that experience leads to us becoming who we are. So I can be this. All of these things that I come up here and tell you I am. But I can also be this. And this, I'm sorry that my clicker is, it should be more dramatic. I'm sorry, what? Oh, okay. Thank you. Oh, now it's, pretend like you didn't see any of that. Oh my goodness. I told you it was my first time. All right, so our experiences are our data, right? The data of the self is our story. And every single one of us has one. So to know your story is to know the story of every other person. Not that you know every single thing that happened to them, but that you know that lots of things have. And to know that every person that we lead, our staff, our clients, our supervisors, our partners, our children, also have that story, some kind of story that is making them do what they do. So to transform others and to transform organizations is to first know the self. And once you know the self, you can know others. Because when I am in that place where I know me, I can give the grace to know you. So the data of the self, however, as good as that all sounds, like I'm going to be self-aware and I'm going to know who I am, it sort of shows up in all of these interesting ways. And typically, it shows up as one of these four experiences, and I describe that a little bit. Guilt, shame, blame, and anger, the four most detrimental human emotions. And I absolutely expressed all of those in those 20 years and since then. But I definitely couldn't name their source in my early life. What I know now is that those experiences sit on top of fear. That can be fear of authority, fear of making mistakes, fear of being hurt, fear of hurting others, fear of loss, fear of the unknown, fear of losing control. So when you think about my story, we all have a story, right? That guilt, shame, blame, and anger that ruled my life, that led me to meet another man just as traumatized as I was, another person, to be defensive, to be afraid, to push back, to refuse feedback. All of those things came from a fear. I couldn't name the fear then, and it was multifaceted, as you can imagine. They all are. It's never just one answer. But I was always afraid of being hurt. For years after Jennifer died, I said, I'm never making another friend again. Because what if they die and I have to feel this again? I was afraid, but it was coming out as some kind of anger. Like, I'm just mad. I was mad at God. I was mad at the world. I was mad at the man who killed her. I was mad at everyone. I was mad at my mother for telling me that it happened. I was mad at everything. So it shows up as all these things. And I share this with you because when we're working with our staff, when we're working with peers, when we're working with our supervisors, our clients, even when we're talking to our spouses, these emotions are present. And I challenge you to reflect on what fear is showing up and why. Because the thing about these emotions is that they can be fortified with action. When we're feeling things like guilt, when we reflect on that guilt, it's really about healing. I felt guilty that I lived and she died. When we're blaming, and people do blame, we push back a lot. It's a fear of taking responsibility. When we are experiencing shame, it's because we need to forgive, partially ourselves, and also others, and the world. When we're feeling anger, it's because we need to give ourselves some empathy. We need to give empathy away. So we are not the victims of guilt, shame, blame, and anger. We are actually the controllers of it. When we feel it, when we name it, and we associate it back to the experiences that left us where we were, that make us feel broken, that data, that experience is your data. That is information, and it helps you change. So self-reflection overcomes fear because it pushes us to test our perceptions. It challenges us to renew our story. So we're not just simply on autopilot, letting all of these experiences drive us and push us. We become the controller of our destiny. What's really important about this is that when we can name it in ourselves, we can see it in others, and then we have choice. We have the choice to accept our challenges as opportunities, even the really bad ones. We have the choice to embrace life's honesty, vulnerability, and messiness as its data. It's information, and that's not to say that when we're having a terrible experience, it's like, well, this is just information, and it doesn't hurt. It does. Of course it does. But we can think about, where is this coming from? Why? Where is it sitting in me? When I'm having an emotion, is it coming from my heart? Is it in the pit of my stomach? Is it in my throat? Is it because of this thing that happened to me? Is it because of the way people have talked to me? Is it the way I was treated? What's happening to me? And how can I address that data with response and choice? Because to understand the data of the self is to understand life's beauty. The uncontrollable and the unknowable is actually grace. It's actually welcome, and it's the only thing you can count on. To empathize that in this place of messy beauty, we are one. There is no one that is exempt from this, no matter how we perceive them. That perception may be our truth, but it's not theirs. To know that, to lead organizational change is to really facilitate the work of a lifetime. So the panel that was just up here was really talking about this reflective practice of understanding your staff. We say things like meet people where they are, but we don't actually know where they are. We make assumptions about where they are, and then we don't quite know how to lead them. They behave in certain ways, and we place judgment on those behaviors. They're short. They don't accept feedback. They're defensive. They're difficult to work with. They need a professional improvement plan. They don't belong here. When actually, when we pause and think, what is going on with you? What is happening here with this person? They're being human in front of us. And if we want to change them, we have to be able to see where that comes from. We have to honor that. To improve is to choose. To lead is to belong to yourself. Belong to yourself first. To lead others is to help them belong to themselves. Now let me clarify. This isn't to say that when we're leading our staff or we're working with our supervisors or we're working with our clients, we're saying things like, gosh, you're really angry right now. I think you should express some empathy. Clearly you have some kind of a life experience that made you this way. This isn't about saying, why do you feel so guilty? Maybe you need some healing. Should you see a therapist? This is about role modeling this all the time, and understand I do not go into organizations and say, let me tell you all about my life story and what happened to me when I was 12. I shared this with you to be, to role model what I'm saying, that I'm honoring this history that I have and how this history shows up everywhere I go. I have to be mindful of that. And when our staff come in and their behaviors are perplexing, but we can't seem to get people to move, remember that they're in the middle of a human experience too. And when we model self-reflection and self-transformation, we bring that out in others. So I do all kinds of work around this and help people talk through these challenges. I do leadership retreats, I do DEIMB retreats, I do organizational development, all kinds of fun stuff. I have a partner that I do all of this with, my life partner, my business partner. We work together in this. Again, D.E.C Consulting, Determine, Educate, and Change. This is really about a life experience. If you're at all interested in talking more about this or thinking about this, please visit my website, DECconsulting.com. Or you can find my information, I think, in the brochure that they have here. But in the meantime, I want to thank you for being such a gracious audience to my first keynote speech, to hearing my story, to listening with such attentiveness. Go forth, enjoy life's beauty, be transparent, be vulnerable, and embrace a little bit of the messiness. Thank you.